Hey everyone, welcome back. So I have been getting a lot of questions about futures. And it's understandable. A lot of people don't even know that futures trading exists. They don't know what futures are. They don't know how to trade futures. They don't know what time of day you can trade them, how much money you need. So I'm going to go over all of that here today. I'll make sure we touch on everything that I get asked all the time, and hopefully it will give you a better understanding of futures. All right, so we're going to go over these three things. What are futures? Are they options? How much money do you need to trade futures? Can you use your current broker? And how do you trade futures? Cool. So we'll start with the first question. What are futures? So we just pull up Wikipedia on Google, and it might seem a little confusing, but this is the definition of a futures contract. So in finance, a futures contract, sometimes called futures, is a standardized legal agreement to buy or sell at a predetermined price at a specified time in the future between parties not known to each other. All right, so you're still like, okay, that means nothing. Lauren, what does that mean? I get it. It seems weird and confusing. When people first hear of a futures contract, they always think it's an option, and it's not. I do not trade options. These are not options contracts. Futures are more similar to a stock than they are to an option. So it's simply like a contract is more like a share. So think about it that way. And you can buy or you can sell. Those are the only two things you can do when you trade futures. Now, when it talks about a contract, that's because there is a specified time frame that it said here that you have to get out of the trade. So that is kind of similar to an option. But again, these are not options. You can get in and out as many times as you want. There is no PDT rule. There's no $25,000 required. You can have a very small amount of money in your account and you can trade options. I'm sorry. You can trade futures. I keep talking about options. I said that. All right. So let's go back to the question. So what are futures? So futures, think about them more like stocks, but they're simply a contract that you're going to buy and sell, or sell and then buy. So you can take a short or you can take a long. There's only two things you can do with a futures contract. And again, they are not options. So two, how much money do I need to trade futures? And can I use my current broker? Cool. So you don't need that much money to trade futures. You can start with a minimum of $500. And that's why futures, to me, is so appealing to many traders. When you're starting off, especially if you want to be a consistent day trader, because that's what I specialize in, I scalp trades all throughout the day. I also will take maybe what we call a swing trade, which is a bit longer, but I'll only intraday swing trade. So again, I will only swing a trade during that one day. And the futures market, we'll get into this later, but it's open 23 hours a day, so you have more time to be trading than you would if you were just in the regular stock market. But how much money do you need to trade futures? Okay, so there are two things. There's two levels of trading futures, I would say. Mini and micro. So mini is the larger of the two contracts, and then a micro is a smaller of the two contracts. This is Tradeovate's website. This is my broker. This is a future-specific broker that I found a little over a year ago, and I love them, and I recommend them to everyone in my room. I don't have a relationship with them. I don't have affiliation with them. I simply just love their platform. I don't really care for their charting, so I still use Tradeovate for my charting, but Thinkorswim by TD Ameritrade, but everything else I love on Tradeovate. So how much does it cost to trade a futures contract? So when you first look it up, you might be a little surprised and it might be a bit daunting. It's actually for the S&P 500, which is the main product that I trade. So just quickly to go over what I do trade. I trade about 6 products. I trade the indices. So within the indices, it's the S&P 500. It's the NASDAQ 100. And then I trade commodities, which is oil and natural gas. And then in the metals, I trade gold and silver. So out of those 6 products, the most popular one that I trade and the people in my room trade is the S&P 500. And the amount to take one mini contract of the S&P 500 is $13,200. You'd be like, Lauren, I thought you said I could trade with $500. This is ridiculous. Yes, I agree. This is simply the amount that it costs. Now, futures trading typically comes along with margin, but we don't want to think about margin in the same way that we do with stocks. So if you think about in a margin account with stocks, people are like, I don't want to do that. It's too risky. It's too scary. I get it. Margin with stocks is when they simply give you more money to trade with. So if you put in $25,000 and you said, okay, I'm going to trade Apple and Tesla, whatever, they would give you an extra $75,000 to use at your disposal. And that is a little scary because what if something happens and then you owe them money? This is a little different. This margin is simply a discounted rate of what it actually cost. So the cost of one mini contract for the S&P 500 is $13,200. But with margin that TradeEvade is going to give you, it's actually only going to cost you $550 to take that one mini contract. Again, this is the mini contracts, so these are the larger ones. And then we're going to have a contract called the micro, which is down here. So if you look at MES, the M in front simply stands for micro. And then the E stands for E-mini, and the S is for the S&P 500. So up here, it's just ES. Down here, it's MES. And again, I also trade the NASDAQ. So these top two I trade, and then MES and MNQ, we also trade. So you can see if you come down here for the day, so day margin means this is the rate you're gonna get from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The night margin is going to be the rest of the time that the market's open. So that's gonna be 6 p.m. when the market opens until 8 a.m. It's gonna cost you this much. So instead of paying $13,200 for one contract, during the day, you'd pay $550. At night, you would pay $1,000. So those are much cheaper than $13,200. When you come down to the micro, it's a tenth of whatever the mini is. And that also goes for your profit and your loss. So the amount that you need to take one micro of the S&P 500 is $55. So like I said, if you have that $500 account, $55 is a great rate to be able to make $20, $30, $50. I had someone today take one micro contract of the S&P 500. So he put up $55, only risking, because we're very big on risk management in my room, and we make sure that you have your stop loss in place. His stop loss was $10. He made $80. So he put up 55, risking 10, and made $80 on that one trade. So he got his 55 back, and he made $80 on it. So that's an amazing trade. And like the initial for here is also a tenth. So if you just compare the numbers, the initial, this is a tenth, the 1,000, this is a tenth, and then the day, this is a tenth. So if you had a $500 account, you could most easily take two micros. And I've been showing this in my TikTok and my Instagram lately, that I've been doing a small account September challenge, showing that you can take two micros for every trade that's given in my alert room, and you can make easily $100 to $200 a day. So if you have a $500 account and you make $100 or $200, that's almost 50% of your account. That is huge. Like, that is so big. So you need to understand that. And you're risking so little. You're risking $10 per contract. And you only have to put up $55. And then overnight, because we also do night trading, you would have to put up $100 per micro. But if you have that $500, you would be able to still take two micros because it would only cost you $200. So I hope that makes sense. So micros is what I suggest all new people trade for at least 6 months. Some people even suggest you trade micros for a year. You really need to be consistent and comfortable before you step up to the mini contracts. They cost more, but also trading futures is nothing like trading stocks. It's very volatile. It's very fast. So you want to be very comfortable with what you're doing before you step up to the mini contracts, which are much larger in profit and loss, and how much you need to put into that. So that is how much it costs. So how much they cost? Can I use my current broker? So that's a good question. Yes, if you have a broker that supports futures trading, then yes, you can use your current broker. TD Ameritrade supports futures. Charles Schwab supports futures. E-Trade, I think Tastyworks, either Tastyworks or Webbolt, one of those do. I've never used those, but I've heard one of those does. Check with your broker, see if they support futures trading. Now, the big difference between using what I would call a big time broker, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, those are big brokers. They don't care that much about people that trade futures because they don't need to. They make a lot of money across all of their products, options, futures, forex, they don't care. So when it comes to this amount, you're going to pay the whole amount at these big brokers. TD Ameritrade is not going to give you a discount. E-Trade is not going to give you a discount. You know why? Because they don't need to. They don't need to mess around with saying, oh, we'll give it to you for $500. Tradevate is a futures specific broker. They are catering to people that trade futures specifically. So that's why we're getting this discount at Tradevate or NinjaTrader or TradeStation. They're all on the same kind of scale. But I first traded futures at TD Ameritrade, and I noticed that I had to have a lot more money, and I didn't even know about Tradevate at that time. So since I've moved my money from Thinkorswim to Tradevate, and I've been very happy. The Tradevate platform is super user-friendly. The charting is not the best, so I still use Thinkorswim for my charting. But other than that, I love Tradevate. Their fees are also much lower. If you go here under pricing, they have 3 levels to the tiers of what you could sign up for fees. Most people stay in the $0, especially when you're new. You don't really know what to expect. You don't know how much you're going to be trading. And so you could just review these on their website. But when it says how much per side for standard, that's going to be a mini. So most of you aren't going to be trading minis. You want to look at the micro amount. So if you just have the free monthly plan, you don't sign up for anything, you're going to pay 25 cents per side per micro. So if you take 2 micros, you're going to be paying 50 cents when you buy it and 50 cents when you sell it. So that's $1. Today, I was at lunch. I took a micro trade on TD Ameritrade. I paid $2.50 for 1 on each side. That is $5 total. It is 25 cents here. So I paid $2.25 more per side with TD Ameritrade. Like, tell me that's not ridiculous, right? And if you signed up for one of these plans where you pay a monthly amount, you get even a cheaper. So then it takes you from 25 cents down to 19 cents. And this is actually great for people that trade minis because that takes you from 79 cents per side to 19 cents per side, even if you're trading a mini or a micro. So that's really cool. Then they have this commission-free trading. I don't really think it's necessary. I think it might entice people to overtrade, which you don't want to do. The $99 per month would be good if you do take a good amount of trades. We've worked it out in my room, and most of the trades that we take, this would help you out a bit. So I know some people in my room have taken this package. So I think that answers that question. So yes, you can use your current broker if they support futures trading. Robinhood does not support futures trading. I don't know who else, but there's a lot that don't. But most of the big ones do. So just ask your broker or look into a future specific broker or a forex broker. If you are out of the US or you're in Canada, we have a lot of those people in my room. You can use NinjaTrader 8, Optimus Futures, GFF brokers. AMP is a really popular one, and then you use it with the MetaTrader 4 or 5. Interactive brokers is good for Canada, but they're super expensive. They're exactly like the big brokers here in the US, and they're going to charge you that $13,000 per contract. So just be aware of that. So then you're probably wondering, why do brokers charge $13,000 and Tradevate only charges $550? So again, we talked about the margin, but what does that mean? So the margin essentially means that Tradevate is giving you a discount during the day and in the evening, which is all 23 hours that the market's open, they're giving you a discount. If you wanted to hold a position overnight, so say you have an idea and you're like, hey, the S&P 500 just pulled back last week. I'm going to get into a futures contract. My futures contract doesn't expire until December. We can go over that in a minute too. So I have now until December. I'm going to hold this and just let it ride out because we have elections coming and I think those are going to go well and maybe we'll get another stimulus. and the virus, the vaccine for the virus should be out soon. So if you thought that and you wanted to take a long position in the S&P 500, you have to actually have the 13,200 to hold it for multiple days. So like I said, in my room, we get in and out of trades very quickly. I don't hold overnight. So there is an overnight time. So the markets are open Sunday through Friday. They open at 6 p.m. and they close at 5 p.m. So they're open 23 hours a day. There is 1 hour where they're closed, which is from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. So this then represents the next day. If you want to hold into the next day when the market is closed, or over the weekend when the market's closed, Friday to Sunday, you must have this amount of money in your account to hold a mini contract. Or if you're in a micro contract and you only paid $55 for it, but you're like, hey, I want to hold it for a few days, you have to have at least 1,320 for that one micro contract. So I hope that makes sense. So this initial amount, and some people get confused because they initial, well, I need to have 13,000 in my account to trade it. No, you need this initial amount if you want to hold it overnight. And again, overnight is 5 to 6 p.m. or it's 5 p.m. on Friday through the weekend until we open again on Sunday at 6 p.m. So each day opens and starts at 6 p.m. Sunday at 6 p.m. is the start of the Monday futures market. And this is because other countries and other markets open up before the U.S. market. So we have Japan and Australia that open at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then we have the China market that opens around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Then London opens at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So to encompass all of these markets, the futures market works with every market around the globe. So that's why they start at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and they go until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then they take that break from 5 to 6 p.m. So if you wanted to hold an overnight contract or a contract over the weekend, you just need to know you need to have this capital in your account. But if you're part of my group, if you're somebody that just gets in and out of trades really quickly, all you need is a minimum of $500 to take these trades, because it's only going to cost you $55 or $100 every time you take a trade for one contract. I hope that makes sense. I think it does. So that's another reason. And the reason that they require that is just for risk. So if you hold a contract and say Trade only lets you hold it like, oh, I have $500 in my account and I'm in this $100 trade or this $55 trade, whatever it is, and they don't require you to have this extra money in your account, they're putting themselves at a disadvantage. If something happens, and it's very small, there's a very small chance that something might happen from 5 to 6 p.m. But a few months ago, that's really every day when President Trump would get on the TV and start talking about the coronavirus. So you have to be aware that these brokers also need to protect themselves and cover their own butt. So within doing that, they have to say, we need you to at least have this much money for you to hold it overnight. Because even though the 5 to 6 p.m. hour might not be crazy, the weekends are typically really, really volatile when we open back up the next week. Typically, we'll have what's called a gap. So the markets will gap, like look at how crazy these can get. So the markets will just gap down or gap up when they open on a Sunday. So this was the open on Sunday. We opened here at 6 p.m. and immediately dropped down to here. And this was a 15-minute candle. This is huge. So they don't want to take the risk that something could happen over the weekend. There could be really bad news. Something in the world could happen. And then they're stuck with the bill, because when it comes to the Security Exchange Commission, this is how much it costs. So Trade is essentially fronting you the money when they let you trade during the day and at night. At night, you're paying $1,000 for a mini. They're fronting you essentially $12,200. If you get close to, so say you took this trade overnight and your account got close to $1,000, Trade will auto liquidate you. That's another question I get. People are like, well, could I lose all my money? If you were in a trade and for some reason you didn't have a stop loss, which I'm very big on in my room, and you didn't set a stop and you didn't have brackets set up, yes, if something happened, Tradevate will auto liquidate you. So you won't, when it comes to margin, you won't go into the negative where you owe them money, whereas that can definitely happen with stocks or options. So you want to just be obviously very aware of any trades that you might be in and make sure you're out of trades before you go to bed or anything like that. But if you get close to this $1,000 or this, if it's during the day, 550, you go to lunch, whatever it is, you come back and you're like, oh shoot, I never got out of this trade. And now I'm down, a few hundred. If you get close to this 550 that's required, Tradevate will exercise their own right to take you out of the trade. And that's called auto liquidation. They will liquidate you out of the position and you won't be in that trade any longer. You'll just be taken out wherever it was at that market order. And most likely that would have been a loss because you were getting close to your balance or what was what was required to have to take that trade. And they will also charge you $25 if they have to auto liquidate you. So that's them protecting themselves, but also getting a commission off of it. So just be aware of that. I just found that out the other day when one of the people in my room told me about it. So please just be careful. How do you trade futures? So I trade futures. Obviously, we've talked about this now in Tradevate. This is called a DOM, or a depth of market is what that stands for. Some people also call it a price ladder. So I have two products here side by side. This is the S&P 500. This is the NASDAQ 100. Currently, they are closed. It's 5:45. So we are in the quote unquote overnight hour right now. When it opens in 15 minutes, it will be Wednesday, even though right now it is Tuesday, September 22nd. So I use these, like I said, I use my charts with Thinkorswim, and then I use these to execute my trades within Tradevate. So this is the platform of the actual broker. It has it's super user friendly. So feel free to even create an account and use the demo. You get the simulation free for 2 weeks. If you need an extra 2 weeks, they'll extend it for you. Just call them and ask. They have a lot of options, a lot of things you can use, but the main thing that I use is just the depth of markets. So this is how you get in and out of a trade. And I actually have a whole nother video on this on YouTube, how to get in and out of a trade and also what the whole platform looks like. So I'm not going to go into that today. I don't want to veer off of what we're talking about, but this is how I get in and out of trades. I use this. So I have brackets set up. You can see them here as I move this. I could get in a long over here. I'd get in a short over here, and you simply are able to manage your trade in a very quick fashion, getting in and out, pushing the buy button, pushing the sell button, exiting when I need to exit, and just getting out of the trade. One thing I did want to touch on though was the whole thing about contracts. So we do use contracts, and I don't want to confuse anybody. There are time frames that you can't trade. So you can always trade the NASDAQ. You can always trade the S&P 500, but they are on a contract time frame. So the indices go on a quarterly basis every year. So every quarter, they change over to the next quarter. So right now we're in December. That's what Z stands for. December, and then the 0 stands for 2020. I include this when new people join, and I just want to show them what's going on here. So this, I don't know how this was created, don't ask me, but they use these letter codes to go with the months of the year. And for December, we are Z. So if you can see here, ES and NQ change every quarter. They only use March, June, September, and December. So September is almost over. We have now moved over to the December 2020 contracts. So right now we're in ESZ0. You could still use September until the end of this month, but the brokers get really picky about that. And a lot of people already have moved to December, and that's where all the volume and volatility is going to be. You're going to have very little volume, or it's going to be super volatile because there's no one trading on the September contract. So you want to just make sure you're in line with what pretty much everyone's doing, because that's where you want to be to make sure you're getting good fills and not having slippage. So these are the letters of the month. And then for my other products that I trade, oil, gold, silver, and natural gas, they go on a monthly basis. So they change every month. Currently, gold and silver are also in December, but oil is still in October. Yeah, they're in October, and they'll probably go to November soon. So that only means, and it doesn't really affect you. It doesn't really mean anything. I don't know where this just went. But it really only matters when you're maybe like not seeing a lot of action and you need to move over to the next contract. But if you're in my room, I let everybody know when we're moving contracts and we make it very clear. Also, if you were in the September one, in a few days, Tradeovate would send you a note every day you sign in saying, we're moving, you need to move your contracts to December. That's the most, up to date. That's the next contract that we're using. But you can't stay in them longer than the month that they expire. So the September ones expire in September. You need to just be out of the trade. That's simply what that means. So some people will take a longer trade. Like I said, somebody might get in right now, September 22nd, and hold it until December 22nd. And that's fine. You just have to have that initial margin amount to do that. So if you did that and you were on a broker like E-Trade or TD Ameritrade, you wouldn't have to worry about anything because they already charge you that $13,000 up front. And again, if you want to use one of those big brokers, the money that you're saying is being allocated for that trade, it has to be cash. You can't be like, oh, well, I have money in equities. No, they won't let you do that to cover it. Like, oh, I have money in covered calls or whatever. Like, no, I have money in cash secured puts. Like, no, they're not going to let you use that money towards a trade for a futures trade. They're just not. It's too volatile. It's too risky. They need to know they have that $13,000 in cash if for some reason something really bad happened. But yeah, so I think that answers everything. If you guys have more questions, feel free to leave them below. I hope this helped. I hope it clarifies. A lot of people don't know about futures, and I think it's a great market. It's open 23 hours a day, 5 days a week. You don't have to have 25,000 in your account. You can start with as little as 500. There's no PDT rule. This is not regulated by the IRS in any way. Obviously, there are taxes and you have to pay taxes. And even the taxes are less than day trading stocks. So that's another plus. And the margin or like the leverage that you're getting from a futures broker like Tradeovate is just awesome. And you're not going to find that anywhere else. So to be able to make $100 a day, $200 a day off of a $500 account, that's just golden. So I hope this was helpful. Feel free to check out my other videos. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. Also, we are always trading every day in the room. We're taking scalps, we're taking swings, and we're killing it. So feel free to come check us out. If you have any questions, again, let me know. And have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.